President Trump warning Iran Monday that the U.S. may carry out another strike if it reestablishes its nuclear program.
That comment coming as the president welcomed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to his Mar-a-Lago home on Monday. Take a listen.
I hope they're not trying to build up again, because if they are, we're going to have no choice but very quickly to eradicate that buildup. So I hope Iran is not trying to build up, as I've been reading that they're building up weapons and other things. And if they are, they're not using the sites that we obliterated, but they're using possibly different sites. We know exactly where they're going, what they're doing.
Trump also suggested that he would support an Israeli attack on Iran if they begin to rebuild their nuclear program. Now, for those concerned that repeated strikes may kick off another war in the Middle East, I've got bad news. Iranian officials seem to think they're already at war. The Iranian president declared over the weekend he believed Iran was, quote, in a full-fledged war with America, Israel, and Europe, adding that, quote, they do not want our country, Iran, to stand on its feet.
Now, Trump's former UN ambassador and frequent critic, Nikki Haley, pounced on the Iranian president's comments, writing on X, "This is exactly why President Trump was right to strike Iran's nuclear sites. We should take them at their word. No deal will change what Iranian regime believes. They don't think Israel or the United States should exist. Countering them means being clear-eyed about who they are and standing with Israel." And Democratic Senator John Fetterman echoing that in his own post, writing, "Iran can't ever develop a nuclear weapon. Fully supported the strike earlier this year, fully support any future strikes to damage or destroy their nuclear ambitions." And Trump's former lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, took it a step further in an appearance on Newsmax. Let's take a look.
There'll never be peace in the Middle East unless there's regime change in Iran. The current Iranian regime is the major barrier to peace in the Middle East. And if President Trump wants to be known as the peace president, he has to be in support of regime change. And then there can be deals with Saudi Arabia and all the other deals.
On a separate front, the administration appears to be turning up the pressure on Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro.
Trump confirmed in a radio interview on Friday that the strikes have been carried out on land targets in Venezuela. He said that the U.S., quote, knocked out a big facility, but didn't give many more details. Trump was asked about it yesterday, and here's what he said.
There was a major explosion in the dock area where they load the boats up with drugs. They load the boats up with drugs, so we hit all the boats, and now we hit the area. It's the implementation area. That's where they implement, and that is no longer around.
The New York Times is reporting that the CIA conducted the strike on a dock where officials believe Tren de Aragua was storing narcotics and potentially moving those drugs onto boats. They report that no one was on the dock at the time and no one was killed. Regime change, regime change, regime change. Venezuela, Dershowitz wants us to do regime change in Iran. That sounds very costly and messy and bloody and not even necessarily likely to produce a subsequent regime that would be better than the current Iranian regime. What evidence do we have of that? So that's a utterly ridiculous idea. Doing regime change in Venezuela is comparatively not as nearly as crazy as doing it in Iran. I'm still very reluctant to say that it's a good strategy. It's certainly not a strategy that should be pursued, in my view, without congressional accountability occurring first. The strikes to take out the nuclear program in Iran were not aimed at regime change. They were aimed at thwarting Iran's nuclear ambitions. I had a lot of skepticism of that kind of approach anyway. Iran is not a threat to us. They're not a threat to the U.S. of A. They're a threat to Israel, maybe. So that sounds like a them problem, not an us problem, and I resent being dragged into Israel's war, again, without any congressional say-so. We cannot outsource our foreign policy decisions to a different nation. It is our job to determine what foreign policy makes sense for the U.S. and its citizens, not for some other country. So this is me at my most, America first, Israeli skeptical. It's not, we get to decide our foreign policy, not them. And I don't like that.
The biggest thing to me is the America First piece and the fact that everybody, for the most part, agrees that nobody wants to get dragged back into the yesterday of America, where wars were something that we were constantly involved with and tinkering on and trying to change regimes. I think that we've forgotten that we're supposed to, or the president has forgotten that he's promised to prioritize America and avoid conflict. And this seems like it'll end us up in another open-ended conflict with no off-ramp in sight, because we're now on Venezuelan soil. And we're going to blow things up for drugs. We're talking about fentanyl and other conversations, but the primary drug coming out of Venezuela is cocaine. So we're not even attacking the actual problem. We're skipping over Congress when we're making decisions to blow up boats in the water and not being clear about if people that actually had narcotics, or if there were civilians on board, or if any casualties are coming out of that. And we're in the middle of infighting within our own country in Congress about the next steps here, and President Trump seemingly just taking the steps that he thinks are appropriate, that if you look at this with clear eyes will involve us in foreign conflicts. And that's just the Venezuela piece. The other piece in Iran, I don't think that we would end up in a full-scale war with them. But if they're saying we're at war with them and we did bomb the nuclear facility earlier this year, it's like, well, we are asking to just ratchet it up. And even though I don't think Iran's in a position to do anything major to the United States, we're going to be at constant conflict and back and forth with this country, because now we've jumped into the best case scenario for Israel, which is still not America first.
Right. The Trump administration has to take a long, hard look in the mirror and say, are we executing on our campaign promise to be America first and to be, no new wars, no foreign entanglements, that kind of thing? I don't know how they could possibly, despite some promising things early on, despite, attempts at peace in various places that I support. I'm not saying I dislike everything they're doing, but I don't know how they could look at Israel pressuring us to do more against Iran, Venezuelan regime change without congressional authorization, blowing up boats without congressional authorization. How could they look at all of that? Israel's going to violate the peace deal in Gaza, and okay, what was that all for? Like, how can Trump say to himself, we're doing what I ran on in terms of no more foreign conflict?
Yeah, and I don't think that
Seems
he can.
like a big mistake.
Yeah,
It seems like it's going to let down the base, frankly, and there's just way too much letting down the base right now. There's way too much pessimism now among Trump supporters, voters. They're starting to turn on each other. The media, the commentary people in MAGA world are in a civil war. The Joe Rogan, Trump voter people came into the fold. They're not happy with a lot of the immigration excesses, some other things. The coalition is fraying, and there aren't enough wins, and this is one. There's not a win on foreign policy because he's not doing what he said he was going to do.
I couldn't have bashed him better myself.
Well, it's not bashing. It's polite. It's encouragement to do more of what you said you were going to do.
Up next, the Justice Department says that the DNC and RNC pipe bomb suspect gave a detailed confession to the FBI. We're going to tell you more. Don't go anywhere.